Hello everybody, this is Albert with Green Tea House. I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to talk about 5 or 6 of the best cold brews, teas, and tisanes that you can make or purchase from us. Now before we begin, I highly recommend you check out our back catalog of episodes, particularly the episodes on the fundamentals of tea. What is black tea? What is green tea? What's a tisane? Also, I'll make sure I put some banners in this episode that are applicable. And the number one banner that I will put here is the previous episode, if you're watching this chronologically, the best way to cold brew your tea. Now, depending on where you live in America, cold brewing tea is very popular. We know in general that 80% of global tea exports is for iced tea. And we know that iced tea is made from black tea. So iced tea, whether it be in down South America or in France or in Latin America, is exceedingly popular. It's a very popular way to drink tea. Now, some tea purists would be like, "That's you shouldn't drink that," you know, all these sweetened teas and whatnot, and iced teas. But again, you know, as I mentioned in a previous episode, drink tea the way you want to drink it. Drink your Tisane/herbals the way you want to drink it. And the world loves cold black tea. And that is totally fine. So check out that episode because I talk about the best way to cold brew your tea, because there is a preferred way that makes your tea actually taste better. Now, in this episode, we're going to talk about some ways you can, some flavors, so to speak, that you could do as you cold brew your tea. And some of these we will likely sell cold as well. And what are you looking for? Like, what's kind of the rubric or kind of the criteria for a good cold brew? Well, I would say, look, I am not a tea purist. I would tell you out of these 5 or 6, number one is going to be doing black tea. Now, why is that? So black tea has polyphenols just like all tea that comes from the Camellia sinensis plant. But they have certain ones called theorubigens and theoflavonoids. And these are specific to black tea and to the darker oolongs, because we know the fundamental difference between, let's say, a green tea and a black tea is that the leaves of the green tea and of the white tea too are not really messed with. But when you go to black tea, they're going to be ripping up those leaves big time. And of course, most of the black tea on the global market is crushed, torn, and curled, which means they pulverize it into essentially sandpaper. You know, it's just like dust, and then they put them in bags. But one of the reasons they do that is because they figured out, and this is mostly the Indians, the British Indians, they figured out that the more you cut up the leaves, it releases more of the flavor of the leaf. And this is mostly going to be because of the theoflavonoids and the theorubigens. And so when you break up the leaves and you oxidize them to the point where they look just like sawdust, it's going to be a much more flavorful tea. And as a result, this is why the majority of iced tea, if not all the iced tea, is black tea. You don't see green tea or white tea sold as iced tea because they just don't have the same flavor profile. Black tea, and remember, black tea in China is called red tea because of the liquor. Black tea is just known to be very robust because it's been broken down to the point where you can't even recognize it. And one of the benefits of black tea as being very robust is that it goes well with sugar and milk. So no doubt, choice number one, if you want to drink a cold brew, is a black tea. Now, how you mix it or what you do with it, that's ultimately up to you. The majority of the kind of the large brands that you find out there are just going to be using just basic elemental black tea. It's not high quality orthodox tea leaves, but you can use cumin, you can use nilgiri, you can use quite a bit of them. But black tea, and then again, you can infuse it with peach, you can infuse it with mango, you can find all these different flavors, and you can do it that way. Personally, for me, I don't drink a lot of iced tea that comes from black. So I'm going to give you 4 or 5 teas and tisanes that I think are great cold brew. But there's no shame or nothing wrong with drinking just regular good old black iced tea. So number 1, Moroccan mint. Moroccan mint is great cold brewed for 2 reasons. One, as the name would suggest, it's got mint. So peppermint is great cold. It is a great drink to drink warm, of course, but drinking it cold is great because why? Peppermint is sweet. Plus it's got that menthol flavor, and it's just really good, really cold. And the beauty of something like Moroccan mint is, go to the episode on that, I'll make sure I put a banner here. Moroccan mint is not mint, it's mint mixed with gunpowder green tea, Chinese green tea. And so that combo is very popular along the northern Africa coast, even all the way east into Arabia. And they will drink it cold as well. and they will add sugar to it. So Moroccan mint, number one. It's a great combo of green tea mixed with a tisane, mixed with peppermint, and it definitely is one that you should drink. If you want to do another green, and I should say before I list off these last two or three, look, you could cold brew anything. I'm drinking a pour right now. You could drink that cold. You could cold brew rose hip. You could cold brew, orange peel tea. You could cold brew linden tea. So just because I mention a tea or a tisane here, or I don't mention, doesn't mean you can't cold brew. You can cold brew everything, and everyone has their own personal preferences. So I'm just telling you some that I think have a very good flavor profile to drink cold. So Moroccan mint. Another one you can do is a sencha. Sencha is probably, I would recommend, the best of the Japanese green teas to drink cold. And I would tell you, like, a sencha with some lemon, a lemon sencha, cold and iced, is very refreshing. As it is, the green teas are just very refreshing because they're very herbaceous in general. Or another great flavor profile, not everybody likes ginger, but a ginger green as well has a great cold profile because that ginger kind of gives a kick. So those are two right there. Another one that I think is really good that we sell is going to be a lightly oxidized oolong. So like a magnolia oolong is really good cold because it has that magnolia floral taste to it that really comes out well if you cold brew it the way I mentioned in the previous episode. It comes out really well. So it's almost like a green magnolia taste. And that being said, another green that you could do very well is jasmine green. Right? Jasmine green is probably the most popular, well-known, naturally infused flower/tea mixture, and you can do a jasmine green, but I would recommend it. Magnolia oolong is a great one. Now, if you look at some of the tisanes, in other words, the herbals, I think the number one is hibiscus ginger. I mean, hibiscus is drank cold in the majority of the Western Hemisphere, the majority of Latin America. This is agua de Jamaica. I drank this as a kid growing up. Well, I grew up in America, but my family's from Mexico, and going down to Mexico, I mean, we would drink Jamaica all the time. You can go to a lot of Mexican restaurants and drink Jamaica or hibiscus. And so hibiscus has that great natural tartness and that great natural sweetness, and it really is pulled out well when you cold brew it. We sell hibiscus ginger because I think ginger just, it complements really well the tartness of hibiscus by bringing its own kind of freshness. And so definitely drink that cold. Another one is licorice, because licorice is naturally sweet. Now, some people think of licorice, they're going to think of black licorice, like, yuck, that's disgusting, or Twizzlers. But as we talk about in the licorice episode, this comes from the root of the licorice plant. And similar to like cane sugar, how people like in Cuba would just chew on the cane sugar for natural sweetness, it's the same thing with licorice. Licorice is just naturally but subtly sweet. And so when you steep licorice, and licorice is one of those tisanes that I think a lot of people just don't know about, that if they drink it, they would love it, especially if you have a sore throat. It has somewhat of a viscous feeling on the tongue and in the throat, and it really coats your throat really well. But drinking licorice cold is just really, really good. And look, with all of these that I'm mentioning, you can add sugar to them if you want, but all the ones that I'm talking about are ones that you can just drink cold brew a la natural. So I think licorice is a great one as well. So I think those are probably the 5 or 6. To review, I would do a black tea, whatever one you want to do, black tea. I wouldn't recommend a dessert tea. Like we have like a dark chocolate mint black tea. That's more of a milk and sugar black than one where you can drink all natural. So I wouldn't say like all black teas are going to be really good drinking iced. And you look at like a chai, a cold chai, I probably wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend an Earl Grey iced as well. A Darjeeling, either first or second flush, can be drunk iced as well. But as a whole, if you're going to drink a classic iced tea, what I would probably use is a really robust black tea like Keeman. But aside from that, in review, Moroccan mint, I would go sencha either with lemon or ginger. I would do a jasmine green, a magnolia oolong, and then a hibiscus ginger, and then a licorice. And we will likely sell some of these cold already in bottles. But if you have these teas at home, these are the ones that I would recommend that you drink cold, and then you can add sugar to your liking. Guys, post in the comments. I'd like to hear from you. What are your favorite cold brewed teas and tisanes? Until next time, take care and God bless.